Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
The theme for this season is family and friends, and as you may have guessed from some previous episodes, we do have another co-host joining, and today I'm excited to introduce my mom. Mom, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're putting
Sort
the
of,
family and friends.
we truly are. And would you like to tell us, Mom, what we're reading and why you picked this book?
We are reading The Frozen River, and I picked it. I had read it for book club and I really liked it. I love historical fiction and I liked the character Martha and I liked the story and it was very interesting to me.
I didn't know that this was your book club book. So now I want to hear a little bit more about the book club. Like, how many people are in it? Do you normally read historical fiction? Do you read other kinds of books? Like, what's the deal with the book club?
It is through a women's group I belong to. It is once a month, and usually most of the books have been historical fiction. We just finished Jackie, a novel, which is about Jackie Onassis, Kennedy Onassis. And there are probably about maybe five of us that go regularly. I did miss one. I didn't care for the book, so I never finished reading the book that we were reading, so I didn't go to the
What book was that?
that was Finding Dorothy. It was about the writer of The Wizard of Oz. I did not
Oh,
care for it. Everybody else absolutely loved it. I got to about 60 pages and said, I can't do this. So I never finished it. So I didn't go to
all
that one.
right.
But and some of the other books have been good. Some have been okay.
And on the
This,
pod, we're big fans of DNFing books, except for the podcast ones, which we're not allowed to not finish.
and I joined your challenge too. I don't know if you saw that. I joined the
Even better. Grace,
yeah.
maybe later in the episode you can do a mid-season check-in with how many people are in the challenge.
Will do. I'll prepare for that now.
I
Mm.
think I am officially at halfway done with it, so
I
Oh,
think I am too. I might be one more than halfway done, but if so, that's because it was a book that I had read previously.
gotcha. Yeah,
Mhm.
I had a couple of those. And Mom, I know famously you tried to join the season four one and had the same problem we did with all of the books were just really bad at the start of the season, so stopped.
yeah, I couldn't read them. I watched the show on the first book, The Fellow Travelers. I watched the show, and that was good. I didn't care for the book.
No, we hated the book.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get into Frozen River, let's talk about what's up. Grace, I see you're being very healthy.
Yes, I have gotten my flu and my COVID shot, so I am feeling very good mentally. Physically, I'm also mostly feeling good. I'm a little tired, but randomly I have like a swollen lymph node. So I'm
Oh.
like fighting with that. Yeah, it's this one on my right.
Hmm.
So if you see me touching my neck while we record, that's why. But yeah, very happy to have gotten my flu and COVID shot at Walgreens because CVS has turned their back on me. But thank you to Walgreens for keeping me safe.
Meanwhile, I cannot escape CVS, so opposite problems there, but I should get my vaccines as well. I keep getting like the reminder texts to do it, and I have not.
I got my flu last week at CVS. I didn't do
Woo!
I didn't do a COVID. I have to get the flu for work. It's mandatory.
Gotcha.
Not that I see anybody, but it's
And Mom, what's been new with you this week?
nothing really. I'm going away for the weekend tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. I have Monday off for Indigenous People Day, so I'm going up
Nice.
to Ossipee. Where else? Going
Mm-hmm.
up to New Hampshire with Liz and Mike and Jeff. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to
Fun.
that. It cooled off a little bit finally here. So we have
Mm-hmm.
some fall weather instead of summer weather again. So
We're starting to get that, and I hate it because I love the summer weather. But I am excited for this weekend because it is one of the weekends where I say that like it happens all the time, but it's one of the rare weekends Santiago was out of town, which is exciting for me because I get my introvert time and I get to have a self-care weekend. So today I already got a facial, and then on Saturday, Grace and I are going to the head spa. And Mom, do you know what head spa is?
I think, is that where they go and massage your scalp and wash your hair and do all that?
Yes. And we've been talking about doing this for months.
Oh, that's cool.
And
That's
it's
really cool.
Erin, you are the savior on this one because this is a place that has opened recently that you
Yes.
were on the ball about. I have been trying to find somewhere in DC to go to the head spa for like probably a year and a half and have been so unsuccessful. So
I've
I
been
am elated.
I've been stalking this place, like waiting to be able to go, and I'm so excited. So that's on Saturday, which will be a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Take that, Santiago.
Exactly. Well, he's in Richmond. He's actually staying with my sister tonight, so he's having a good time.
What is he doing?
So some of his friends are coming into town from college. Well,
I see.
one of his friends lives there, and then the other ones are originally, I think they suggested coming to DC, and he was like, "What about Richmond, where you have a house and more people can stay there instead of our tiny little apartment?" So they're in Richmond, and then I was like, "How about you go night early and stay with my sister, and I will be at home alone."
When will he come back? Sunday?
Sunday, yeah.
You were so lucky that Flynn does not know that you canceled a gathering of boys from being at her house.
Oh,
She would have
she'll
loved
be
that.
She
upset.
would have loved that. She's probably pissed also because just Santiago is not here. So she's
She's probably
sulking
looking
in the
for
other
him.
room. All right. Anyone been reading anything good lately? I can't talk about what I'll be reading this weekend because it's a pod book and we're very quiet about what we're currently reading for the pod. But I am listening to a new audiobook.
Let's hear it.
I am continuing successfully on my Hunger Games journey. Didn't encounter any other hold lists so far like I did with the first book, so now I'm on to Mockingjay, which I have never read.
I thought you read those, all
No, I
those.
read the first two and I didn't like them, but now
Oh,
I really like them.
yeah.
And as someone who did read them at the time they were coming out, the third one was very controversial amongst us youngins at the
I do
time.
remember that.
I do think now I'm just offering my own opinion, which frankly, Erin means like next to nothing to you because we differ so much. Um, but I think it has aged very well. I think
Okay.
there are a lot of those books from that like teen dystopian time that have not aged well.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
think Mockingjay particularly has aged well.
Okay, I'm excited. I have seen the movies, so
Yes.
I am excited. So I do
Here.
like pretty much know what happens, but still, I liked the books a lot and even knowing what was going to happen in them.
Well, I'm gonna go next because I have something else that's slightly in that like teen dystopia theme. I have my book right here, so I'm just gonna hold it up. I'm reading a thriller. It's called The Unwedding by Ali Condi
Why do I know that author's name?
because this is the lady that wrote the Matched books.
Are you serious? She has a thriller?
Yes, she's so interesting to me now because she's like apparently she's like former Mormon or currently Mormon. I don't know. She's from
That
Utah.
makes sense based on the
Yeah.
matchbooks.
She's super young, but yeah, this is her first like book that she's written not for teenagers. And so I was like, I have to read this book because it'll just be hilarious that it's like the lady that wrote Match.
It
It's
is
super
funny.
generic. Like I'm like two-thirds of the way done, and there's not really any feeling of suspense, and I have no idea who is committing the murders.
Okay,
Um,
incredible.
but it's whatever, I just think it's a hoot to me.
You'll
So,
have to compare it to what did we just read? Death comes as
yep.
the end.
Yeah, that's hard to remember because it's just not a natural sentence. Death comes at
No,
the end.
the title's really been throwing me on that one, but you'll have to compare to your abilities to suss that one out as we read.
Absolutely. Pam, what are you reading?
I am reading The President's Daughter. It's a John Grisham book. I read
Mm,
a lot of his books. They're so quick and easy. It's a 590 something page book, but I'm like 300 pages into it already. So I'll finish that in another couple of days. It's he did there was three he did with Bill Clinton, and one is the third one. I
Oh,
got it at Savers, and it was a quick
so
and easy read. But I did because I just finished the Jackie book. And I do have a couple more pod books I picked up this year
okay.
already. So that will be probably one of my next ones will be that. I have so many books to read. Not enough time.
We did go to the bookstore while I was just up there visiting, and each came away with a number.
Yeah, love that bookstore.
All right, are we ready to get into the Frozen River? Shall I start with the synopsis?
yes, please.
This is another synopsis I'm going to have a bone to pick with, which is, more often than not. All right. Maine, 1789. When the Kennebec River freezes, entombing a man in the ice, Martha Ballard is summoned to examine the body and determine cause of death. As a midwife and healer, she is privy to much of what goes on behind closed doors in Hollowell. Her diary is a record of every birth and death, crime and debacle that unfolds in the close-knit community. Months earlier, Martha documented the details of an alleged rape committed by two of the town's most respected gentlemen, one of whom has now been found dead in the ice. But when a local physician undermines her conclusion, declaring the death to be an accident, Martha is forced to investigate the shocking murder on her own. Over the course of one winter, as the trial nears and whispers and prejudices mount, Martha doggedly pursues the truth. Her diary soon lands at the center of the scandal, implicating those she loves and compelling Martha to decide where her own loyalties lie.
All
All
right,
right.
what's your beef? Because I
My
don't
beef,
have a beef.
you don't?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, mine's going to come up later when we're actually talking about the book, but I just want to
Okay,
earmark where it says her diary lands at the center of the scandal.
I see.
But let's talk about Ariel Lawhon. Is that correct? Lawhon? I didn't look it up.
Lawn.
Law.
Lawn.
For our
Lawn.
listeners at home, Lawhon.
Lawn, I guess we'll go with Ariel Lawn. She is a New York Times bestseller of historical fiction books. I think relatively newer to the writing scene slash becoming more prominent as of late. She's currently living in Nashville, and some of her other books include Codename Helene, which I know is a very popular one, and one called I Was Anastasia, which Grace, I think you and I should read because it's a historical fiction about the woman who claimed she was Anastasia Romanoff.
Ooh, okay.
I'm curious about that one. She really didn't have a lot on her website. I would say Frozen River is definitely her biggest hit. It was a Good Morning
Mhm.
America book club pick. That was kind of all I found in terms of like award wins or anything. Doesn't seem like she's won a lot of big ones. I would imagine if she's kind of more up and coming, like I could see some of that to come, especially if she stays like this mainstream historical fiction route.
And to me, she
However,
seems,
go
sorry,
on.
to me, she seems really comparable to a lot of other pop historical fiction authors. Like, I just talked about reading The Personal Librarian, which Erin, you've read. So that like Marie Benedict, a Kate Quinn, like those types of authors, they're not really winning like Booker prizes, but
Hmm.
they're up there. They have sales, they have year-end lists, and they have book club picks, and that's
Yeah.
kind of their like markers of
Yeah.
success for that genre.
Hmm. And I will say something that really caught me off guard before I even started reading The Frozen River. I went on Storygraph and it has like thousands of reviews, and it was one of the highest rated books I've seen on there. It
Here,
was like 4.3 or something at the time I
Mhm.
looked,
I pulled it up. It has a 4.36 based on nearly 31,000 reviews.
which is insane. Like, we do not see numbers those high.
And Storygraph is not as popular as Goodreads either. So
Mhm.
the number of reviews is certainly, almost certainly higher on Goodreads.
I'll see if I can find it.
Well, while you take a look, has anyone read anything else by this author? I don't think she has any like books or movies associated, or excuse me, I don't think she has any miniseries or movies associated. I could see this being a miniseries though,
Hmm.
for sure.
That's what a lot of people have said, that they can easily see it being into like a TV movie.
Yeah.
I
Or
actually think this would be like a perfect candidate for what people are looking at because it has that like thriller mystery element and also a feminist message in a historical setting. Like I think that like Hulu would like really lap that up.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
have
so.
not read any of her other books. I have seen Frozen River around forever. It's like very popular.
Mhm.
However, first of all, I didn't know that the Anastasia one was not about regular Anastasia and it was actually about Anna Anderson. That's super
Hmm.
interesting to me. But also, she wrote another book that was about the Hindenburg. And I kind of want to read that because I love airships. So I want to
I
read
was
about the
I was
Hindenburg.
gonna say that's kind of up your alley of like weird methods of transportation.
Apparently, that's one of my alleys.
Speaking of which, Grace, as I told you earlier, Mom, I didn't get a chance to tell you, Santiago and I are going in a submersible
When? On your
on a
cruise?
cruise. Yeah.
My gosh.
When we're in
That's what
Grand
I
Cayman.
said.
To assuage Grace's fears, it doesn't fully go under. Like part of it stays up, so it won't explode.
So what it is it like a glass bottom boat? You're gonna see fish under there?
Yeah, except you're like almost all of it is in the water.
Okay, we'll see how that is.
I'm excited for it. Anyways, let's get back
So
to Frozen River.
I have Goodreads up.
Oh,
So
go
it
ahead.
had 45,600 reviews and it got a 4.39.
The
Wow.
more reviews and even higher of a score.
That's insane. I've
Hmm.
never seen numbers like these.
And it's got a lot.
All right, well, I guess it's time to talk about it then. I'll start with our disclaimer. Our judgments come based on the book and characters within the book rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on, which in this case, super applicable. And also spoilers ahead. This is a popular one if you're planning on reading it and want to avoid the spoilers, just, heads up, we're not shying away. All right. Where do we want to start?
I think we should start with something that you brought up, Pam, which is the central character of Martha.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think she is the really crucial element to the whole book. To your experience reading it, you're in her head the whole time. She's the linchpin of all of the plot. So I think if you're starting somewhere, you have to start with her.
I just liked that I felt she was such a strong woman.
Hmm.
And the whole story about, it was right after the Revolutionary War. They were in this little town. They didn't, they moved from their other town where we find out her three daughters had died. And then they came to Hollowell.
Hmm.
And I think it's just mainly because she was such a strong woman. She was a midwife. She just really advocated for the women she treated and helped. I do, I do agree with Erin about her diary not being the center of the
Important.
scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean yeah, she took notes. I mean, and you can kind of say, well, why'd she write the weird note she wrote? Well, if you equate it to today's world where doctors have to write medical notes after every visit, that's what they
Hmm.
do. So that was kind of early. I look at it as the early start of taking down the medical notes after a
Hmm.
medical visit. And in her way, she did that. Um,
Something
mhm,
something that while I was doing historical accuracy came up was that to the author made a comment about like it being really important to have a woman who's like, mid 50s, not like the young female heroine you see so often in novels. And I think that's really important because that does give such a different and unique perspective that like you don't get that usually in popular historical
mhm,
fiction specifically. Her diary to me, I agree with you, Mom, and it definitely is like that early significance of record keeping. And I understand it from that point, but at the same time, like, and well, again, this all comes back so much in historical accuracy that like she really did have a very thorough diary in real life. Like
mhm.
all of that was very true. And to me, it felt like the diary was a way for like the author to put in, like, look, I did all my research. She had this diary. And I don't know, I think it would have been fine if the synopsis wasn't like her diary is at the center of this trial.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was my issue with that point. But I did like Martha um and Grace to recall a previous pod book that we've referenced frequently recently, The Henna Artist. This reminded me of the sense of I thought there was a very strong main character, weak aspects otherwise of the book.
hmm I have a separate pod book to compare
Oh,
to. I think Martha reminds me a lot of Agnes from Hamnet.
yes.
She gives me very similar vibes in that they are these really strong and independent women. Not independent in the sense that obviously they both rely very heavily on their families for emotional support and for
Mhm,
love, but they are very strong. They're slight outcasts within their
Mhm.
community and they have just this insane font of knowledge. Agnes's in her case was just kind of like magic, kind
A
of.
little bit of magic.
Poorly, kind of slightly poorly explained. But Martha is a midwife and an extremely knowledgeable one. And that's where her centrality to a lot of the plot comes in. Uh,
Hmm.
because the central rape case does result in a pregnancy. And so she is a friend and doctor to the woman in question. But I have almost like a different perspective on the diary than you two, but I don't think it's like fair comparison necessarily because it's just a personal
Yeah.
bias because I knew about this diary beforehand. I don't know if I
Hmm.
could have told you the name Martha Ballard, but I knew about the like famous like Maine midwife diary and
Hmm.
just how like significant it is as a historical document, like
Yeah.
how many things that we've learned from it from having not only like a middle class day-to-day perspective
Hmm.
because that's often not recorded, but the perspective of a woman. So
Yeah.
mhm.
all of these like mundane things that she writes down, like Ariel Lawhon makes a point of saying how often Martha, the real life Martha would write down, I have been at home today. like even just knowing things like that is so relevant. So
Mhm.
the fact that it was definitely, I think, a little overemphasized the the importance that the diary would have within the plot as like proof to uphold at the rape trial.
Mhm.
That did not really pan out.
Yeah.
And the motif of it reoccurring definitely reoccurred because the real life Martha did it in real life, and that's how Ariel did all her research was by reading
Mhm.
the diary.
Mhm.
But the fact that it was just involved at all, I enjoyed because that is just such a
That's fair.
it's a really important historical document, but also it's not one that a lot of people reference or know about. So I think
Mhm.
this subject is a really good one for the book. And I didn't know that this criminal case was in there at all. Like I had never heard of that before.
Yes, and I will say, and we'll again, we'll talk about it in historical accuracy. Um, Ariel Lawhon does have a very thorough author's note at the end, which,
Yeah.
made my life a little easier researching and
Mhm.
also is something that I appreciate as a reader. So we'll come back to all of that and the trial and everything. I think we should go a little bit into plot here.
I think so, because it's somewhat convoluted. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that as an insult. I just mean that there's like two cases kind of merged together as one.
Hmm.
There was, I think, a lot of skipping around and a lot of characters. It was kind of hard to keep track of some of the characters.
Hmm.
And I think she made a note in the author's note about how many Hannahs there were, and she had
She
to
had to
rename
change.
them because there was so many. And I appreciate that she did that because I was confused with the Sally and the Sarah, and that was, who is who.
There was a Grace in the book, and she noted that in real life, the Grace was another Hannah, and she changed her name. So,
Very funny for our specific friend group, which includes a Grace and a Hannah.
Mhm.
yeah, we do not have creative first names in our friend group.
No, and unfortunately, this book taking place, set when it was in Maine, was not
Right.
really privy to many creative names either,
Mhm.
which, no fault of the author by any
It's
means. Thank you for at least changing what you did.
Comparing to other pod books as our theme of the episode, it's very other Boleyn Girl, where it was only Anne's and Catherine's.
I also
Anne's and
said because
Catherine's and Jane's.
Catherine and Jane's, and then also almost all of them were like based on real people. So I also compared to She Who Became the Sun, which was your biggest issue with, I don't know if that was your biggest issue, but a main issue.
Was one of my big issues.
Okay, so who wants to give just like a quick hits plot synopsis?
Well, I
I
can do
think can
that.
do it the best.
All right, Mom, if you want to take it.
Sure. Well, it opens with the kind of whole central theme was the frozen river, the
Mhm.
Kennebuck freezing and then kind of thawing out, and it was central to the whole story. And it starts off with a murder, and it's kind of this guy Burgess who was accused of rape of Rebecca. And then it kind of goes through, what had happened. And Martha does truly investigate it. She is called to do the autopsy on him, or not the autopsy, she's called to examine his body.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a whole bunch of babies born. And then the whole rape trial. And she is very much advocating for the woman Rebecca who was raped. Her diary does play a role in that it shows that Rebecca did report it to
Mhm.
Martha, and how Martha kept her diary. There was no way she could have gone back in to add any points, is what I think they were trying to say she did, especially North. The whole justice or lack thereof for women was
Mhm.
very frustrating to me, but that was the time. And then
It
we
was
have the town doctor, or the newly appointed Harvard graduate male doctor, who I think you can guess by that phrase what I thought of him.
it wasn't funny because it was like really horrible and it was the fact of the situation, but it always made me laugh when Martha would go to him and be like, "Have you done this before?" And he's like, "Well, I've read about it in school." And
Yeah.
she's like, "Okay, but have you like done this on someone? Have you
Hmm.
spoken to a patient before?" So that I'm like, it's awful to think about because it's like that really was what it was like, but at the same time, like it did make me like it's amusing to think about in a way.
Yes. Yes. So,
And then at the same time, there was kind of like you said, like twofold trials go, not maybe twofold investigations, because then they were
Hmm.
also looking into once they had kind of determined that Joshua Burgess was murdered, looking into his murder.
Right.
And also, crucially, Rebecca's rape was there were two men who were perpetrators. So
Hmm.
one of them was Joshua Burgess, who was the murder victim, and then one was this man named North, who was a very powerful, like, representative within the town.
He
He was
was
a
on
judge.
trial, but also he was the judge at the same
Yeah,
time,
which
Yeah.
is crazy.
which
So
was
he
so
has a
crazy.
lot of the power that the women don't have.
Hmm.
And Martha had some kind, I never quite figured it out, even after reading it twice. She had some kind of, I don't know if it was a friendship or just a familiarity with him prior to all this. Because of her, we find out she's been raped and the hanging of, I forget, Billy something, Billy
Billy
Crane.
Crane. I
And
had written this down because actually this was one of the things that I thought was the most interesting about the book, and I could have used more of it. Because you're right when you say, like, I never quite figured it out, because she doesn't tell us a lot about it.
right.
Hmm.
But you do get a hint at the end. North, in the present day of the story, is portrayed as being like pretty unambiguously evil. He's not like a
Mhm.
complex character that has nuance. He's
Right.
just straight up pretty evil. But there are all of these flashback scenes of Martha when she was younger with Martha and her husband and North. And they're all friends. And it's implied that the two of those men killed this Billy Crane man who assaulted Martha. And
Mhm.
even that, Billy Crane never appears on page. You never even, I don't think she spells it out that she was assaulted. It's all kind of left in like
Hmm.
kind of hints. And I think that's a really, really smart way
Yeah.
to shape that character
Mhm.
because you don't need more information than that
Right.
on her past. Now, granted, we just said we wanted to hear more about her and North being friends, and he went off to war, and supposedly that's where he turned and got worse.
Mhm.
But that storyline I thought was very, very well handled, and it
Hmm.
informed a lot on Martha's character currently because that in like plus her being a midwife and being so careful and caring and attentive to the women of this town really informed her being like kind of a feminist crusader in the
Hmm.
town and not just, she is going out of her way for others the entire time we're with her. She's never
Hmm.
just doing the minimum or minding her own business.
And I do like the subtle flashbacks because there are some times where we have characters who are just like very flat and evil and we don't like it. But this is one of the cases where it worked for me that North was just like, he was just an evil guy. Like we knew that.
Mhm.
But I liked the hints of complexity you get and you see how he kind of became more evil and like why him and Joshua targeted Rebecca. Well, it was because her husband was out of town, but also it was because in the French and Indian War, he had like been really involved with like scalping and killing Native
Mhm.
Americans, and she was kind of like years later welcoming them back into the community, and that was like, kind of the what triggered his targeting of Rebecca specifically.
Mhm.
All right. Where do we want to go next? I did have some issues with this book.
Yes, I think we had the same ones.
And I'm interesting to hear what you thought, Mom, because I think when I mentioned it to you in person, you did not agree with me. This book was so repetitive. It's like every single detail she explained to us like five different times, and I really think this book could have been half the length it was.
I think there was a lot. I think she could have cut out a lot. I think there was like a lot of uh, side characters that she could have cut
Mhm.
out. I didn't really get the repetitiveness though.
To me, it read like Martha would figure something out, and then she'd talk about it with her husband, and then she would talk about it with someone else. So it felt like the same conversations just recapping. And that just kind of like really felt like dragging my feet through a lot of the scenes because I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I get it, I get it. And we talk sometimes about books that we're like, we want the author to trust that we are following and know what's going on. And for
Right. I
me, it
see
felt
that.
like that trust wasn't there. Like she was kind of like, are you getting it? Are you? Are you following?
Mm,
Especially with some of those more like complicated plot points.
okay.
I agree. I actually, the further distance I get from this book, the more I remember it fondly, because
Hmm.
I think my problems with it all lay in the experience of directly reading it.
Yeah, no, I
Because
really like,
it read quite slowly for how much
yeah,
plot there was.
I feel the same. I really like the story itself, but the experience of reading through it, I'm like, this is going slowly, very
Mm.
Well,
slowly.
maybe I did get that because when so I had bought the book once, read it, I gave it to Erin.
Hmm.
So then when this came up, I had to get it again. So I got it again, and when I picked it up again, I'm like, wow, this is a thick book. I don't remember it being this long.
Yeah.
It's
And
500 some pages, or it's just on the verge of being 500
Hmm.
pages. It is on the longer side. The thing for me that encapsulates this the most, and this is when I kind of put my finger on it and I was like, "Oh, this is my problem." There's one scene, it must be somewhat towards the beginning, when Martha goes into the shop in town. And inside the shop, there are four people. There's three women, and
Mhm.
there's the shop owner. And you hear in detail about all of their backstories. You get the first and last name. You get the babies that the women had had that Martha had delivered or not delivered. You get all of this information just for her to go into the shop. And it's just not necessary. When one of
I
the women comes up and talks to her later, then we can find out about her then. Like it
Hmm.
scene felt like a pause because I think Ariel Lawhon, I think she just needs to kill her darlings. Like
Yeah.
all of those women and the shopkeeper, I'm pretty sure they were real people. Um, and I think I like it's good for her that she knows that, but we don't need to know that because
I
they don't
thought
become
that.
consequential.
Sorry. I thought that about the shop. I'm like, she really could have cut that out, the whole store. We didn't need to know about that. But then those women in the store were the ones that turned their backs on her and went with the doctor to deliver their babies, and two of their babies died. And then we find out at the end that um Sally or Sarah, which one was it?
The one that
Sarah
babysat
White,
her son.
her soldier husband or soldier boy, baby daddy comes
Oh, the
back
other one. Yeah.
and then buys the store. So I think she was kind of trying to tie it all together, but I do agree with you, Grace. I think she did go into a lot of unnecessary detail in that whole
Mm.
scene.
And so that's why I have noted here, my favorite parts of the book were the courtroom scenes. There
Mm.
were
Hmm.
a handful of them because actually a lot of this book pretty accurately, I think, deals with the injustice inherent in bureaucracy. So there's a
Hmm.
handful of courtroom scenes. They're all spaced pretty far apart because it's like, well, you don't hear this case here. You have to hear it in March at the like blah, 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 bang gavel. But those scenes moved along so briskly. And I think it's for the same reason that the other ones move so slowly, which is because she did her research, because I think
Yeah.
it's based on as much of the transcript or whatever of these cases as she has. And it's
Hmm.
snappy, it's mostly dialogue. There's not a lot of pauses. And a
Mhm.
lot of the other scenes where there is dialogue, there's a lot of description in between. And so I really felt like during the legal scenes, things were really, really moving. And so I really appreciated that. Those scenes and then the very dramatic ending, I think, were the ones that moved along quickly.
Let's not get into the ending yet, but I don't know if I liked the ending.
Maybe
But
not, but it moved quickly.
it did move very quickly. It did. But I think another point to call out that you have written down, Grace, that kind of for me ties in with some of the repetition and the getting bogged down. A lot of discussion about logistics and like that how things happened and like so detailed that that also slowed it down for me.
Mm. And this is something I don't want her to kill this completely because part of it is required to put you in the setting.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Like, this is very viscerally a place that I'm very happy that I never have to live. And that has nothing to do with the people or like the rape and murder, but it's just like the river's frozen over. The horse is throwing you off into the bushes. It's like -2 degrees outside. You live in Maine. There's like no other people around you for hours. Like, it just sounds awful. Then I also,
And I say it sounds wonderful.
oh my gosh.
Not
And
the
then
horse
every
part.
time,
Not the horse part.
well, it's like then every time she gets on her mean horse to go somewhere,
Oh.
The horse that hates her.
the horse that hates her, we're hearing about the to and from, which some of that again is granted because, she obviously doesn't just have the ability to just go places like we
Mhm.
do.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of, and that's like one other thing that kind of adds an extra handful of pages to every
And
interaction.
I wonder if she did that because it was so long ago. It was 17, what, 89 or something? I forget. Yeah, 1789. And maybe she is assuming correctly that none of her readers would have ever experienced
Yeah.
anything like that. So she really is trying to put you in the setting. But I do agree it was a
And it
little,
worked because
yeah.
boy, was I like, oh man, we have
You
to
know
go
what?
back again to town.
You know what made me laugh about the setting? And Grace, I think we both call this out in our notes. We've read like a couple of books in this time period, and both this and Johnny Tremaine did the exact same thing of how it was like a big reveal that their silver was made by Paul Revere.
Yes. I'm
And I
glad
really,
that you
I'm like, was this a
mentioned.
common experience at the time? Like, we read three or four books in this specific time period, and this was two of them.
That's funny. Yeah, her husband was good friends with Paul.
Let's talk about the husband for a second.
He is just like, well, his name is Ephraim, first of all, and he is just like good husband, TM.
He can do no wrong.
Hmm.
Hmm. He's a very good husband. And so at first, and also in total, like I was just very happy for Martha that she had a nice husband, especially because they had a lot of kids. So it's like, she was getting up to stuff with that husband. But he did not evolve or change at all as the book went on. He just stayed the same, like good
And
husband.
I
Yeah.
think that would have been fine if he had been in the book less. I think if we saw less of him, I would not have cared that he was just kind of static, but I needed like a little something more because he was there so much.
Hmm.
I didn't really understand the bird. That part with him, I didn't.
Oh, with his hawk.
Yeah, him and his hawk. That was kind of weird, but
Yeah, there were
uh,
lots of weird animal things because there was also the fox in this.
Yeah, I'll be mean about the fox. I thought the fox was really
I
stupid.
thought this was like some symbolic silver fox she would see that she was
yeah,
like, "Oh, he's warning me of danger."
A
I
literal
it's
silver
like a
fox, not like a
guardian
George
angel.
Clooney type.
I looked at it as, it was a silver fox, it was a female, and it kind of, I don't know, I looked at it as just kind of a symbol, but more of
Well,
a
at the
guardian
beginning
angel.
of the book, when we were in the store, those two hunters were like, "Oh,
Mhm.
that fox pelt will be worth so much money, when we kill it." And then Martha's like, "No, like I want the fox to live." So it was very much like I feel like an extension of the,
Right.
feminism theme. But then I felt kind of bad because the whole time I was reading it, I was like, "This fox is so stupid. Like I don't need this fox."
Unnecessary,
Damn,
yeah.
I'm not a lover of animals anyway. So I'm
Not
just like,
by
I
any
don't need to
means.
read about this fox that lives in the wild. But then at the end, when I was reading the author's note, Ariel Lawhon in the author's note was like, when I went to the hospital to like give birth to my baby, there was like a fox outside in our yard. So in my head, so I was like, oh, this is like a really important thing to you. I feel bad about being mean about it, but then the fox.
So no historical accuracy to the fox.
No,
Not
well,
Just
it
from
wasn't
really.
even a
her own life.
silver one, the one
Yeah.
that she saw in real
She's
life.
got
So I
red, I
guess,
think. Yeah.
you know,
I didn't even include that in my historical
I mean,
accuracy.
I'm sure there were foxes in Maine.
Oh yeah,
They're a
like
Oh,
cold weather
sure.
animal,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if silver ones are real or not, but
who's to say? Who's to
who's
say?
to say?
All right. There's like a bunch of other subplots we're not even talking about, like with her sons, and like one of them gets a girl pregnant.
Oh my gosh. That's the
Jonathan, yeah,
only
he was a
thing.
problem child.
That's the only thing with Martha that I was like, girl, you are better than that. Because at the end, her unmarried son gets this girl pregnant and they have to get married. And
Mhm.
to the end, like, she doesn't even get over this and like learn from it. She's like, that girl baby trapped my son. And it's like, okay, your son's like 30. Second of all, I'm of the opinion that if you're living in a world with no birth control, you cannot baby trap someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you mutually decide to make love and a baby
Mhm.
results, that is both of your fault. So I
Also,
was Tisk tisk
Also,
Miss Feminist Martha for thinking that.
in this universe, much like the henna artist, they also have abortion tea.
Yes. So
Yes. Yeah, from the Indian, the Native Americans gave it to gave it to her.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, there could have, I don't know.
And that kind of was right. So she was drinking that to abort the baby that resulted from the rape. The rape was because of the Native Americans,
Mhm.
the prejudice against them. So it
well,
kind
then
of,
there's also this subplot of this character named Doctor, who is a black woman who's like a
I
what's the
forgot
word?
about Doctor.
Like a nomadic doctor. Like she just comes through town sometimes, and
Mhm.
all of the women see her while she's there before she leaves. And she's based on a real person, apparently. Well, I
I
felt kind of, I wish that Ariel Lawhon had given her a real name. She
mhm.
said, like, I didn't give her one because one hasn't been recorded. And she was like, and I didn't feel like I should put a name on her. But I know she was
Get
like, that
that.
was her goal was to be respectful. But I thought it didn't really work to just call her doctor.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that. I think I understand why, as an author, she made that decision.
Mhm.
I kind of thought at first the doctor wasn't really a doctor, more of a medicine woman type, a
Probably.
spiritual type, but
I think somewhere in the middle.
so
Well,
she was
she seemed to be like the most effective medical person in the book, like more so than even Martha, more so certainly than the Harvard
no.
doctor.
Yeah, because Martha had a very particular skill set.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
all right. I think we should talk about the ending.
Okay, we should. The ending, it comes after the resolution of the legal cases,
Hmm.
Hmm.
which is North is found not liable for the rape of Rebecca.
Hmm.
And I forget and then I think the murder of Joshua Burgess, just like no one is found responsible for it.
I don't know that they tried to, I guess, for lack of a better word, investigate it, but never, like, I don't recall it ever going to trial or anything like that. I don't think.
I think they tried to do like a vigilante justice type of thing.
Hmm.
Like they arrested one of Martha's sons for a bit, but then he was like,
And they had no proof and had to let him go.
Right. And I mean, we find out who killed him at the end.
mhm.
Um, or Martha finds out through her investigation who
Yeah.
kills him.
And so, and
Mhm.
let's just resolve that real fast. That was a character named Sam. And by the time I was like recording my notes into our script, I had forgotten there was a character named Sam. Like I knew this had happened, but I was like, I couldn't tell you one fact about this man.
Sam was the one who
Sam,
fell into the frozen river.
yeah, Sam found Joshua and
Oh,
pulled him out with the rope that he used to hang him.
see, I knew someone did that, but I didn't remember it was a guy named Sam. Anyways, because they all just had the same name in this book. It
Sam and
was clearly a
Sally.
struggle. But he killed Joshua for
No,
also raping his wife,
May
which
was her name.
man, you're real good with these names, Mom. You've gotten like every single one of them.
I'm like,
But
it's not Sally. I said Sally, but it's not Sally. It's May.
so he killed Joshua because, and how he found out that Joshua had also raped his wife was that he had like a scrap of lace that he had torn from his dress to tie his hair back, which was the same thing that they found him with lace. Or I don't know if they found him, but in Rebecca's testimony of what happened, that she had said the exact same thing.
That
Right.
was like his calling card.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that's resolved there. For
Well,
a while, they thought it was someone in Martha's family, like one of her two sons was like, they kind of went back and forth between both of them at some points. But it was Sam.
Sam, but Jonathan, Martha's son, helped him.
Yes. Hmm.
He helped beat him and hang him. But
That's fine with me.
Sam found his wife after she
Hmm.
was raped at the dance. After she went to go use the outhouse, and Joshua followed her out and raped her. And then Sam found her
Hmm.
afterwards. And I think the reason Sam one of the driving factors to Sam killing him, other than what he did, was that fact that how Rebecca wasn't even believed, and how the
Right.
trial North was acquitted.
Hmm.
There was
And
no
there's kind of
justice.
an interesting situation there where when Sam's wife was assaulted, she became pregnant also. But Sam said, like, even though we weren't married, like it could have been my baby. Like
Right.
we still don't know. But
Hmm.
Rebecca was assaulted when her husband was away.
Hmm.
And so that's like much more incontrovertible proof. She was like, my
Mhm.
husband was not home. The only people at home with me were my babies, and here I am pregnant. Like, that's proof. And
Right.
still nothing came of that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, Erin, you were right. It very much was like vigilante justice
Hmm.
by
Hmm.
the men of the town.
At least someone tried to do something.
Yeah.
But let's talk about North's ending because this was also kind of wild.
Mhm. So he is not sent to jail or found guilty or anything like that. But through the course of the book, he does try and intimidate Martha and her
Mhm.
husband by seizing the land that they live on.
Hmm.
And she foils him in that attempt. So he basically is unable to achieve this goal that he has had since coming back from the French and Indian War, which is just to kind of be the owner of the whole, like of all of the land in the town,
Mhm.
to
Hmm.
amass all of the power in the town. And he not only is not able to do that anymore, but even though he wasn't held legally liable in this rape case, his reputation has been dragged through the mud, and it's all due to Martha, and he is
Hmm.
aware of that.
Yes. So he shows up to Martha's place when she is home alone. I forget where her husband is, but he does come back like in the middle of this. And he tries to assault Martha. But instead, Martha cuts his dick off with, remind me, was the sword, the knife, was it Paul Revere Silver?
No.
No, it was something. Actually, I only caught this the second time reading it.
Uh-huh.
They named it Revenge,
Oh.
and it was talked about very early in the book. When she was in the shop with her husband, he was using it, and she's like, "You got to be careful of that. You can cut your hand off with that. Thank God you wear that apron." And
Hmm.
then that's when they named it Revenge. So when I saw that the second time around, I said, "Oh, so it wasn't just a random knife she found.
Yeah.
It had some plot to it or some store backstory to
Hmm.
it." So, but yeah, she used that and took care of him.
And it was kind of funny how they resolved it. Well, one thing was funny, one thing I didn't like, but what I thought was funny was they like they weren't gonna let him bleed out because I think it's also like, what are you gonna do with the body? So she actually like stitches him up and they
Hmm.
bring him to the Harvard doctor and they're like, well, like he had an accident using this heavy machinery. And then North, like he's not gonna say, like he's not gonna implicate himself. And so the doctor's just like, yeah, I guess so. So that's like the story is like he chopped
Maimed
himself to bits
himself.
with like a wood chipper or something like that, which that made me laugh. What I didn't like was Ephraim gave the chopped off dick to Rebecca and was like, do with it what you want. I hated that.
Yeah, I that was unnecessary, and you wonder if that really happened. And then she threw it in the fire without even looking at it. She knew what it was.
I didn't like that. I'm like, personally, if I was Rebecca in this situation, that is the last thing.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, I understand the impulse of writing this, but if I was her, that would not be helpful to me.
No, that would not bring any sort of closure.
Mhm. And the scene itself, when North is threatening Martha and he's getting so close to her, it was tough to read.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess that's a compliment to Ariel and her writing, but like, I really like, I don't know if I could hack, like, I didn't know if I could take it. It was just
Hmm.
so tough. Like, it almost, to clarify, in real life, the cutting off of the dick did not happen.
Hmm.
So this is an invention by
Yes.
her. And it almost was so, not to use the word ludicrous, because that's wrong. It was so over the top dramatic that
Hmm.
it helped cut the tension a little bit. So that was nice, even though I'm still not quite sure how I feel about it. I'm of two minds about it. I both like it and I don't.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that scene was one of the most like heightened emotionally to read, and it was tough because it was, yeah.
I liked like the physical action against him because I'm like, good, at least someone's punishing this man, you
Right,
know.
there was some
There
justice.
was some sort of justice. What really like instantly soured it for me was like giving it to Rebecca. So that
Yeah.
was the piece I really took a lot of issue with.
Mhm.
But I did like, I'm like, well, at least there's some sort of like vigilante justice. And I think especially validating for Martha to have had been a victim of assault before, to be able to kind of like take that power and take that literal revenge.
Mhm.
Hmm.
This is something that to me, I grappled with a lot. I'll grapple with it more again. It's not specific to this book, but this idea that in the book, this is how North is brought to justice. And in real life, North was not brought to justice in
Mhm.
any way. So part of me thinks how great that this is here to right that wrong. And the other part of me thinks this book would be more effective and more powerful if it forced you to confront the reality that
Mhm.
Yeah.
this is what happened and we need to change it, and that change takes hard work in the real world.
Hmm.
So I like the symbolism of it in that this is what we're aiming for. Obviously not that literally, but just, justice of some kind.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um, but also it's an easier fix to write a book like this than to actually have effects on our current legal system, which thankfully is much better than the one that they had in 1789. You
Yeah.
have to ride your terrible horse to court once a year, but it's still not, we're still not all the way there yet.
I mean, I think it was justice, but I think Grace is right. I think it would have been a little bit more powerful had they not done anything and he just walked away like he really did.
Hmm.
Oh, actually, I have a major question that actually maybe you two can answer for me, especially Pam having read the book twice. So, Rebecca does have the baby
Right.
that's as a result of rape. And she immediately just hands it to Martha and says, throw it in the river. I do
Right.
not want to see it again. And they do try and have her be like, this is your child. And she's just like, no, I cannot see that baby. Absolutely not. So she ends up taking it to another woman who has given birth recently instead of throwing the baby in the river, who
Hmm.
is currently breastfeeding and says, can you have the baby here while I think of something else? I thought that was supposed to be like the temporary fix, but we don't circle back to it. I don't think we see the baby go anywhere else. So does the baby just stay with her forever?
So that woman was Sarah White, the one with
Hmm.
the soldier daddy, baby daddy.
Hmm.
And earlier in the book, her mother made a remark to, or she or the girl's mother made a remark to Martha that, oh, she's got so much milk she can feed two. So
Oh.
then that's, I think, why she thought of Martha thought to give it to Sarah. But I do think that that's when they say, oh, he inherited money, he's bought the store, we're going to raise,
Hmm.
and we're going to raise our family here. And I think she led us to believe now they can afford to keep the baby and raise the baby as their own. But now I don't remember if Rebecca stayed in that town or if they moved. But I mean, you wonder if Rebecca knew who she gave it to, and if that baby was still in the town, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of Rebecca not seeing the baby if the baby's around.
I
Hmm.
think, from my understanding, I also got the assumption that Sarah was and her partner that she then married were going to raise the child. I think Rebecca did believe Martha killed the child. I don't think they told her she didn't. I think she was like,
Oh, okay.
okay. And Martha like brought the child to the river because there's a moment where you're like, oh my God, is she going to kill this baby? And then she was like, I would never do this.
Yeah,
Which is like what you as a reader, that's why it kind of builds suspense because you're like, this would be so out of left field.
right.
So I think they did let Rebecca think that happened because I think Martha knew that would give her some semblance of peace.
And they did imply we didn't get like closure on the Rebecca leaving town's subplot, but there was the whole element of she and her husband were only there because the husband was suing over unpaid wages
Mm,
Hmm.
before he left to go take a position in another town.
okay.
So they probably did leave now that I think about it, but we didn't. So maybe another page or two on those loose threads could have been wrapped up because I remember like closing the book and being like, all right, done with the book, like going to put it down and then being like, what happened to the baby? Like, wait a minute, where'd the baby go? So yeah, that's much less thematic and poignant, but that is my closing thought was I
Yeah.
didn't know what happened to the baby.
All those pages spent repeating the same information to us and no closure on the baby.
No one told me where the baby went, but we did get to see the stupid fox one more time.
Thank
Yep.
God. All right, are we ready to get into historical accuracy?
Yes.
So I actually listened to a podcast for this one. Shout out to NPR's Book of the Day, which was like a 10-minute segment, an interview with Ariel Lawhon.
I
Um,
love
I
NPR Book of the Day.
I really hated the editing of it. I thought they left in like a lot of mouth noises, and
Well, Erin, are
it
we in a
just
position to criticize someone else's sound editing?
listen, okay, so the day we're recording this is actually season 5 release week. So Santiago did let me know because I asked him, I'm like, let me know how it sounds because I tried something different editing. And he said the audio sounded great and the volume was perfect. So I think maybe we are in a position.
Okay.
Anyways, so this was the fictionalized story of a real 18th century midwife, as we have discussed. Something I thought was kind of an interesting framing for all of this was Ariel was talking about how she came across Martha Ballard. And she was actually pregnant, waiting for an appointment with her doctor who was like running a little late. So she was just like flipping through some of the books. And one of them was like a little, she said it was like a devotional in the office. And one of the pages she opened to was about Martha Ballard. And she like ripped out the page and brought it back with her. And that's how she found out this whole story. And she was like, yeah, I just kept thinking about it. But I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, one a unique way. You don't often hear about how authors get their specific inspiration or how they came across a specific story for historical fiction. So I liked that. But Martha Ballard really did deliver over 1,000 babies without losing a single mother, and she did keep those records in her diary.
That's insane. That's
Yeah,
an insane stat. Good
and
for her.
even on that little podcast when Ariel was talking about it, she was like, I was sitting there thinking like, my doctor doesn't have those numbers. Like, this is
Right.
crazy. So, midwives at the time did perform autopsies and other forms of medical examinations. They really were medical experts at the time, especially when, like, the town really didn't have an official doctor.
Hmm.
And her diary did keep track of the murders and scandals in town because it was based so much on her conversations with her patients. Um, her diary mostly didn't give a lot of detail about like her personal life. Like you said, Grace, a lot of the entries were just like, I was at home today. So
Right.
a lot of those gaps were filled in. I think that is a perfectly acceptable addition to this book to really flesh out her character. This book centers on a real town in Maine and included a real historical events, the primary one being the rape trial. Some names and dates were changed. A lot of that, as in the author's note, was to avoid name duplication. That's not something, actually, that is something I commend. I do not like name duplication when we can avoid it. So I think that is in this book's favor. Diary entries were also condensed. I think it wouldn't have made sense to put the full ones on the page anyways.
Hmm.
Um, I think the biggest change, and Grace, you had made a note of this in your comments, and I think this is probably more appropriate to talk about now. The rape itself was actually changed. It
Yeah.
instead of by 2 men, it was 3 men on 3 separate occasions.
It was over a week.
Yeah,
They
throughout the
held her
course of a week.
captive. Yeah.
And one of the men in the different occurrences were cut from the book. And in the author's note, she writes, "Reader, I could not bring myself to write that." So I think there's a lot of things for discussion here, but let me put a pin on that and let me just say my last point in historical accuracy. Joshua may have actually died suddenly or been murdered. Little is known about that, but all of a sudden he disappears from the diary and is just never mentioned again. So he could have left town, he could have been murdered, any number of situations, but it likely he did not play a role in this town after, to whatever extent that may be. But going back to the change of the actual rape itself, I don't I don't know how I feel about this change for this book. I understand completely where she's saying I could not bring myself to write that because that is horrendous. But at the same time, it's it's interesting to me that that is what was changed.
Yeah, it's interesting to wonder quite where the line falls then,
Mhm.
because obviously what was written was quite awful. Um, but in terms of preserving the history, this doesn't particularly bother me. I think the lesson of it and the impact of it on the reader is not dissimilar. There's a whole nother character that we simply would not, that would kind of get lost in the shuffle, that wasn't really involved in any of the legal action. That's part of the utility of having Joshua be murdered, even though we don't know if that's what happened to him in real life, because
Mhm.
then he just simply wasn't around to be entangled in the
Yeah.
action the way that this third man would be. And it doesn't lessen the impact of on the character of Rebecca, which I think
Hmm.
is the crucial part of this.
Yeah.
So to me, for those reasons, I don't mind the change. However, had she made the change and not told us about it in the author's note, I would have thought that that was inappropriate. So
Yeah.
I think that the that highlighting it here is the thing to do.
Mhm. I, as a reader, would not have wanted to read that kind of extent of an abuse.
Hmm.
So I'm very glad she cut it down to what she did.
Hmm.
I think that would have been incredibly hard, and both for her, as she said, she couldn't bring herself to write it, and I think it would have been incredibly hard as a reader to read it.
Yeah.
And I do agree with Grace. I don't think there would have been any different impact on it, on what happened in the trial. Still was the trial, and the outcome still was the outcome. It wouldn't have made a difference. It obviously didn't make a difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I am pretty sure I agree with you all, like especially from a reader writer perspective. I completely understand not wanting to A, write that, B, read that. Um, and then also about him just like also getting lost in the shuffle. Yes.
Mhm.
It just I don't know. It's hard knowing that things were so much worse. You know, that is like and it's not even that I don't think like the I don't I don't want to say it feels like it was watered down because it absolutely does not.
Mhm.
It's just hard knowing that, and I think where I struggle with it is it's just difficult that knowing it was worse. And I think that's why I struggle. But on the other side of the same coin, um, you're right, Grace. I think it would have been inappropriate if she made that change and didn't note that.
Mm.
Mhm.
I think I'm just struggling with the fact that it's just a heinous situation all around. And I don't think they're I don't know. I think there are some authors who would have kept that in and it would have been successful. And I think there are ways to write that to not make it. It would have changed how this book was written because this book you did get more like kind of gut punchy scenes. And I think there are ways to write this where I don't think you could do those type of scenes if you did have, this extensive situation in there. But I don't know. I appreciate that she called that out. And as we now know, the fox was real, at least in the author's life. So there's that as well. All right, that's what I got for historical accuracy. I didn't really go much into Maine in the 1700s because I don't think that's the interesting historical accuracy piece here.
Were the horses mean?
I don't
Probably
know
at
if the
least some of
horses
the
were
horses.
mean, but I have a feeling the way she depicted it, it was real. I mean, I know
Yeah.
the Kennebunk freezes. I know there's a ton of snow now, so I imagine back then too, when they couldn't plow it, it was even worse.
It's like when you
I
write a book and people think like, "Oh, is that character me? Is that character me?" Like Ariel just has a horse that she really hates in her life. She's
it's
like, "I'm going to
like
make you look bad."
it's like the American Girl doll book we read where her enemy was the goat.
Yeah.
It's just like that. It was the exact same vibe. Wow, this book really has so much pod crossover, huh?
No, we could connect it to all of them if we tried really hard.
All right. Shall we head to our star calculator?
Let's.
Grace, do you want to go first and read the
Oh,
categories for us?
sure. Our categories are historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes. For historical accuracy, I'm going to go 4. I almost went 5 just because she clearly is so dedicated to the history, but I think combined with the fact that she overused it in some areas and there were some critical things that were changed, I don't have a problem with either of those choices in terms of serving the narrative. Well, obviously, I have a problem with using it too much, but I think that those two things combined, I just can't give it a 5, but this is a very good 4.
Hmm.
So I'll leave it there.
Grace never gives
Originality,
fives for
I
historical
give fives
accuracy.
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Originality, 5. Like I said, I was super excited when I realized that this was about Martha Ballard because she is very interesting to me. So I was glad to hear about it. And then also, I was surprised that there was this whole thriller element because I did not know that that existed in real life. Characters, 3. I found it kind of middle of the road for, there were too many side characters. I thought
Mhm.
Martha was good. I thought some of the other side characters did have elements of being good, but they weren't really allowed enough space in the narrative to breathe. I liked what's her name who got the baby at the end. Was she a
Sarah.
Sally?
She was a Sarah.
Yeah,
Sarah. I liked
she was Sarah.
her. I liked Martha's daughters. There were some characters that I did like, but not enough to bring it
Mhm.
up to a four. Um, pros, pros, I'm gonna have to go two. I think all of my problems with this author are all craft related. I really enjoy her subjects. I really enjoy the passion and research that she puts into them. Uh, but it's just the execution of the writing that drags down the experience of the reading. And so for that reason, Vibes is also a two. So that's a 3.2. This was a 2.25 on my story graph. I did initially give it lower and then I moved it up because I realized I had been harsh. Uh,
It's interesting because what you said at the start really holds that you look back more fondly than you did after immediately reading it.
yeah.
Mhm.
So this is a straddling the line of fine for me.
I think that's fair.
Although I will say this is probably the lowest rated book that I will say that I would read more from this author because I want to read the Hindenburg one and the Anastasia one. So I will continue on with Ariel into the future.
All right, well, I will go next. I am going to also give it a four for historical accuracy. You can't deny she did a great job researching everything. I felt like she didn't have to include everything she discovered. Like with a lot of the side characters, I thought that was a bit of a hindrance. Originality, I'm also going to go five. I thought this was great. I loved the protagonist. I thought she was a very unique story and one who she is prominent. Like Grace, you had known about the history of this a bit,
Mm.
or at least of the diary. So obviously very prominent. So kind of surprise. I'd say surprising, but society hates to write about older women, any woman that's older than like
Mhm.
35. So characters, Grace, I'm just copying you right now. I'm gonna go three for characters. Martha was such a standout to me. I thought she was fantastic. I really loved her. There was just too many characters, and some of them just like there were some characters I was fine with being more flat, like North. I thought that worked really well. But then the husband, I'm like, you got a little too much page time to,
Mhm.
not really change at all. So pros, I would also go to. Vibes, I'm also going to much for the exact same reasons Grace just said. Grace, I think for once we had a lot of the same issues with the book. For me, that's also a 3.2. I had given this a 3 stars. I don't regret reading it. I really enjoyed the story. I enjoy having learned about the story.
Good.
I would probably read more from this author as well. I just wouldn't expect it to be like up there amongst some of our pod gems. But I did enjoy it. I thought this was a really great story.
All
Well,
right.
I feel I should give it a five because, I picked it. Historical accuracy, I'd probably say four. I
Mhm,
think she depicted everything pretty as best as I've researched and have read
mhm,
about it. Originality, I loved the book. I would give it a five. I think the story was original. I think some of her characters, Martha being the main one, was very original. For characters, I would probably go a four. I do agree. She had too many
mhm.
side characters, way too many. And some of them were not like her husband was not developed enough. Um, but I think she did a great job on Martha and really capturing her.
Mhm.
So I give it a four. Pros, I'm not really sure on that one.
So that's like how the writing style resonated for you.
I mean, I read it twice and I recommended it. So
Okay.
I would say, I mean, but I do see issues with it. I do. I don't, it's not, is it the best
Yeah.
written book? No. Um, but
So sometimes what
maybe.
we'll do is like take away if we're like, okay, yeah, the prose wasn't that great, but the vibes were like we really enjoyed reading it, we give the points back in vibes.
Okay, so I'll do a three. I'll do a two on prose. Vibes. I mean, I enjoyed the story. Maybe it's because of the whole older woman thing.
Hmm.
Um, I felt she was, it's not a young adult book. It's not, it had a substantial character that I really could connect with and understand. So vibes, I would go four.
Okay. And that gets you a 3.8.
Okay.
So I think that would be like a fine leaning 5.
It was definitely a fine book, in my
Okay,
opinion.
there you go. There you go. Would you say you appreciated this main character being in her mid-50s as opposed to trying to relate to Gwen and Art are not in love?
Yes, absolutely.
I
I
would
think that's,
rather read this than Gwen and Art any day.
I had so much fun with Gwen and Art. Y'all are haters.
I am a hater. You're right.
It's okay because next week I'm about to be the world's biggest hater.
Next week, we'll be reading The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell, featuring data scientist Ashley.
Our probably number one recurring guest host. So excited to bring her on and tell her her opinions are wrong. No, I'm not going to do that.
You'll have
All
to see
right.
what we think about her book.
She'll have to stay tuned as if she doesn't already follow me on Storygraph. But anyways, Mom, thank you so much for coming on. We loved having you. Thank you for
I-
recommending this book and introducing us to the world of Ariel Lawhon.
I'm glad you both want to read more of her. That's a
Yeah,
good thing.
I could see the Anastasia book making an appearance on a future pod season.
Especially with your love of Anastasia, yes.
As we know.
And you are welcome to come back and read it with us if that is the case.
I have a few pod books already for the year, so I'll have to get reading them next. So I can be caught up when they're broadcast.
Well, you know what you can do in the meantime, Mom? You can be
Why?
following us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @fiverflop_pod and participating in our Storygraph challenge as you already are. So I'm
I,
excited to see your progress.
I am, and I do follow you already. I do give you little hearts all the time.
That's
And
all we ask. You're one of our loyal, like 4 people
And
who
I
like
think
your posts.
I've seen some of my pictures appear on that Instagram once in a while.
You have contributed. You are a creator of user-generated content, as we say in the social media industry.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know it.
circling back, I was given a job at the beginning of the episode. So, as you are hearing this, when we're recording, only one episode of season 5 has been released. And
Hmm.
we have 6 participants in our reading challenge. Now, our most participated in reading challenge had 9 participants. So, we're hoping for 10. We're aiming for 10 participants this year.
I'm gonna make Santiago make a story graph to log the one book he's reading for the podcast and subscribe to the challenge.
Well, let's see. We have 3 co-hosts in the reading challenge currently. So we're going to try and get that number up.
So that means there's one person who's not us or a co-host,
There is one stranger, or maybe it's a friend of yours. They're a stranger to me.
That's
but they're a
fine.
friend of the pod.
Exactly. A
That's
friend to
all
the
you
pod
need
is
to
a
be.
friend to all.
Well, if you are a friend of the pod, you can also email us at Five O'Clock Podcast with any of your thoughts or ideas. Or if you want to go from friend to co-host, let us know. Or you can fill out the recommendation form in our bio as we start to plan for future seasons.
And in the meantime,
Do you want to sign us off, Mom?
Happy reading? I don't know how do you.
Happy reading!
bye.
Happy reading. Bye.